Hello again. Until now, we have learned how to set up DynamoDB using Docker Compose that is in this file named as dockercompose.yml. And we have the image. It is already set up. It's in the previous video. And then we learned how to set up a Docker client, which we could use to communicate to the DynamoDB. Then we created a table for a to-do application where we had primary keys, sort key, and different keys altogether. We had defined the keys, like what we would be creating here, what would be the attributes, what would be the key schema for the table, and what would be the different local secondary indexes of this table. So now let's go to the next step where we start off. Let's create a file inside a folder as source, or let's better call it as CRUD, because we would be creating all the CRUD operation files in this folder. So let's create a file as create.js. So we need to import the DynamoDB client as a client from this table. Import client from, let's Dynamo client. Needs to specify. Okay, so let's create a function as create. As of now, we are not passing any arguments in this. Let's create a database structure, data structure that we want to save in our to-do table. So let's write it as to-do. So to better reference it, let's see what all we have in our table as attribute. So for user ID, we are calling it as primary key, PK, and to-do ID, it becomes my sort key. We have due date, priority, and status. Since these two are required, these three are optional. So we can start off with as PK, just to ensure what value, it's all in small case. So let's keep PK as my name Rajat, and let's keep SK as 1, keeping it in string because the sort key is in string format. So I want to have a title of the to do. So let's call it as my first to do, and let's put the due date. So let's verify what we provided as the data type for due date. So it's a string, so we can just write new date to string. Let's say it's priority, although these keys are optional, but I am still providing it as. So I'll keep the priorities as either high or medium or low. So let's keep it as low for this one. And my status for this is, so for status, let's do it as 3 again keys. Status would be to do. It has not started yet. In progress. And done. Okay, let's fix the typo. So this will be initially as to do. So the data structure is done. So the next part that we need to touch on is, remember we installed a package as AWS SDK lib DynamoDB. So now is the time to utilize this. Let's go. We need to import put command from here, from lib DynamoDB. So this helps me to have a better structure, that base user friendly structure that I can insert in my database that is more readable for developers. So my command would look like, let's say the input command is new put command, and in this I need to define the table name. That would be, let's verify the table name. It is just to do. Let's copy this and paste. Now we have the item. Item means the data that we need to store. Since we have already defined this, so we can, let's try assigning to do to it. Okay. Next is when this is being called. So what is my return policy? Okay, my bad. It is to do. So what's the return consumed policy? Oh, sorry, it is return consumed capacity. It should be total. It would return me everything. So I have prepared the put command. We need to use this put command to create a entry in our record. So from lib DynamoDB, we need another element that is called DynamoDB DocumentClient. So this basically helps me to use the client that we created dot from DynamoDB DocumentClient basically helps me to use the lib DynamoDB package to basically extend this client that we had in Dynamo client, which is actually the real library that is used for interacting with our DynamoDB. So let's tell from where we want to set up this client. So let's assign this to some variable. Let's call it as DDB client. Okay, so now we will use this DDB client to create a new entry. To create a new entry, it would be DDB client dot send to send the command. And since we have already defined the command, so it would be just telling, referring the input command that we created earlier. So this is, if you just hover over it, it will tell us, it is giving us a promise back. So let's create this as a async function to take advantage of async await structure. So async, oh sorry, this would be await. and const my to do. So let's log this to do, check what is being created. Let's say to do created and my to do. Okay, and before we do this, let's log the object of to do as well, what we are actually trying to create. To do checked. Okay, fix the comma. We are good. Let's now call this function as create. Okay, so let's open a terminal in VS Code itself and call this node rud and create.js. So it says it has created a table. So this was the easier way by using DynamoDB document client. So we are good here. But if we are not using, let's say, DynamoDB lib client, this library, so then we would be actually using client DynamoDB package itself. So if that is the scenario, so let's comment this. Let's write another function, async function create using the package client, sync client. In this scenario, we have put item command, as in this put item command from client DynamoDB package. So I have used the VS Code functionality to import it automatically. So let's press command and it would be new. It needs the table name. Table name is again to do. Now we need to define the item. Item here now needs to get structured as, we need to tell the attribute name. Now my attribute name is PK, which again will be another object where I'll define the data type. Now you see, this is all the different data types that we get from DynamoDB. So since it is a string that we have defined, so I'll just do as Rajat. Next is SK. It is also a string. And this ID, let it be 2. Now we want to have as a title. It is also of type string. So I'll keep it as my second to do. So you get the gist of it. I'll now, just to show that DynamoDB is a NoSQL and we don't need to provide all the attributes for every item that we create. So I'll just stick to primary key, sort key, and the title. And again, I'll need to specify the return consumed capacity as total. So let's use this command. New, call it as my to do. equals to client dot send. So we again need to send the command. So the command we have defined above as the PutItemCommand. Let's put await here so that when it resolves, the value of to do gets assigned to my to do variable. So let's log to see what we get. Let's call it as my new to do, and this would be my to do. Cool. So let's call this function. So this is create using client. Okay. Now this is the only function that this file, when I'll invoke this file, this function would get called. Let's do it again. Node crud create.js. So, okay. So now it has returned me the metadata of that file and telling the consumed capacity. Earlier, if you see, the to-do created also had the same response. It gave me the request ID, HTTP status code, everything. So that is how you create the items in a DynamoDB.